Good day, everyone. My research presentation, titled Assessing the Implementation, Effectiveness, and Relationship between Student Programs and Services in Sultan Kudarat State University, a focus on admission scholarship, food and health services. I am Florlyn Macer Mejio, PhD ITI student. For my objective, first, assess the implementation of student programs and services, including admission services, scholarship and financial assistance, food services, and health services. Second, evaluate the effectiveness of student programs and services, encompassing admission services, scholarship and financial assistance, food services, and health services. And last, examine the relationship between the implementation and effectiveness of students' programs and services. For my research question, first, to what extent are student programs and services implemented, specifically in the areas of admission services, scholarship and financial assistance, food services, health services? Second, to what extent are student programs and services effective, specifically in the areas of 2.1 admission services, 2.2 scholarship and financial assistance, 2.3 food services, 2.4 health services? And last, is there a significant relationship between the extent of implementation and effectiveness of student programs and services? For my research question number 3, null hypothesis, there is no significant relationship between the extent of implementation and effectiveness of student programs and services at Sultan Kudarat State University. For my justification, this study is particularly interesting for Sultan Kudarat State University as it addresses critical aspects of student programs and services within the institution. By examining the extent of implementation and effectiveness of various services, the research can identify areas that need improvement and highlight best practices specific to the university. This is critical for creating an environment conducive to student success, well-being, and satisfaction at Sultan Kudarat State University. The answers to the research question will contribute to existing knowledge by providing insights in the current state of student programs and services at Sultan Kudarat State University. This information will be valuable for university administrators, educators, and policymakers who can use the findings to make data-driven decisions to enhance the quality and accessibility of these services for their students. Further, this study is relevant because student programs and services play a significant role in the overall educational experience at Sultan Kudarat State University, ensuring that these services are effectively implemented and meet the needs of students contributes to their academic success, personal growth, and overall well-being by identifying areas where improvements are needed within the university. Targeted efforts can be made to address those gaps, ultimately fostering a more supportive and inclusive learning environment at Sultan Kudarat State University. For my data, this study, the researcher aimed to examine the extent of implementation and effectiveness of various student programs and services, such as admission services, scholarship and financial assistance, food services, and health services at Sultan Kudarat State University. The study utilized data from 250 respondents who were exclusively from the main campus of Sultan Kudarat State University. This dataset captures the direct experiences and opinions of the students who utilized this program and services, providing an accurate assessment of the current state of student programs and services at the institution. This dataset is the best source for the analysis as it specifically focuses on the target population of interest, providing insights into the implementation and effectiveness of student programs and services at the main campus. However, there are limitations to consider, such as the potential lack of generalizability to other campuses or institutions, reliance on self-reported data which may introduce response bias, and the possibility of external factors influencing the findings. For my analytical methods in this research, several statistical techniques are employed to address the objectives and ensure a comprehensive analysis. Descriptive statistics, including means, standard deviations, are used to summarize and describe the central tendencies and dispersion of the data. This technique is particularly helpful in determining the extent of implementation and effectiveness of various student programs and services at Sultan Kudarat State University. Furthermore, correlation analysis such as Pearson's correlation is employed to measure the strength and direction of the relationship between the extent of implementation and effectiveness of student programs and services. This approach allows the researcher to explore the significant relationship between these two aspects as stated in the research objectives. Lastly, linear regression analysis is utilized to model the relationship between the extent of implementation, independent variable, and the effectiveness of student programs and services, dependent variable. This technique enables the researcher to determine the effect of implementation on the effectiveness of these programs and services, thus addressing the research questions related to their significant relationship. For my audience, first, university administrators and decision makers. They are responsible for ensuring the proper allocation of resources, establishing policies, and implementing strategies to improve the quality of education and student support services. Second, faculty and staff. The quality of student programs and services directly impacts the educational environment, student engagement, and overall satisfaction. Faculty and staff are interested in understanding how these programs and services are being implemented and their effectiveness to better support student success. Third, students. Students have vested interest in the quality programs and services offered by the university, as they directly benefit from them. Fourth, parents and guardians. They often play a crucial role in supporting their children's education and well-being. Fifth and last, researchers and educational experts. These individuals are interested in understanding the relationship between the implementation and effectiveness of student programs and services to contribute to the body of knowledge and the field of education and inform the development of best practices.
Let's go to JASP. And click the descriptives and add all the variables. The result panel, let's uncheck this one, the minimum and maximum. And here it is, the result for the research question number 1. For the research question number 2, I will open again the file for effectiveness. Click the descriptives and uncheck the it missing minimum maximum. And this is the result of the research question number 2. For the research question number 3, I'll be using the correlation. I will click the effectiveness, and this is the correlation, persons are correlation. Then after that, I'll go to linear regression. Click the effectiveness as dependent variable and covariates the implementation. And this is the result for linear regression to answer the research question number 3.
Result in discussion. First, to what extent are student programs and services implemented, specifically in the areas of admission services, scholarship and financial assistance, 1.3 food services, 1.4 health services. Previously, I demonstrated to you on how to get this result in JAS software. Now, the results and discussion for this is the table 1 shows the descriptive statistics for the student programs and services were analyzed to assess the overall satisfaction levels among respondents. The analysis revealed varying satisfaction levels across the different services. As evidenced by the mean scores and standard deviation, admission services, respondents reported a relatively high satisfaction level with admission services with a mean score of 3.994, as standard deviation is equal to 0.706. These findings suggest that the admission process is perceived to be efficient and well organized, allowing students to access the required services with ease. Scholarship and financial assistance. The satisfaction level for scholarship and financial assistance was moderately high, with a mean score of 3.735. Standard deviation is equal to 0.706. This result indicates that students generally appreciate the financial support provided, although there may be room for improvement in terms of availability, accessibility, or communication about these services. Food services. The mean score for food services was 3.788. Standard deviation is equal to 0.773, reflecting a moderate satisfaction level among respondents. This suggests that while the food services provided meet the needs of students to some extent, there is a potential for improvement in areas such as food quality, variety, and affordability. Health services. The highest satisfaction level was observed in health services, with a mean score of 4.022. Standard deviation is equal to 0.767. This finding indicates that the health services offered are effective and addressed students' needs and concern, providing timely support and care when required. For number 2 research question, to what extent are student programs and services effective, specifically in the areas of admission services, scholarship and financial assistance, food services, and health services? The table 2 shows results of the descriptive statistics, provide an understanding of the perceived effectiveness of various student programs and services. Admission services, mean is equal to 3.745, standard deviation is equal to 0.661, is seen as moderately effective, with the mean score nearing 4 and a low standard deviation, indicating consistency in student perception. Scholarship and financial assistance. Mean is equal to 3.416. Standard deviation is equal to 0.866. Is perceived as the least effective among the four services, with the higher standard deviation reflecting more variability in student experiences. Food services. Mean is equal to 3.609. Standard deviation is equal to 0.769. Has a moderate mean score suggesting moderate effectiveness, and a relatively low standard deviation, pointing to consistent students' experiences. Health services. Mean is equal to 3.903, standard deviation is equal to 0.731, is perceived as the most effective services, with the highest mean score and a relatively low standard deviation, denoting consistency in student perception. Overall, health services is perceived as the most effective, followed by admission services, food services, and scholarship and financial assistance. The findings can inform decisions on improving the effectiveness of these programs and services, particularly focusing on enhancing the scholarship and financial assistance offering in Sultan Kudarat State University. For research question number 3, is there a significant relationship between the extent of implementation and effectiveness of student program and services? As you can see, the table 3 shows a person's correlation analysis was conducted to examine the relationship between the extent of implementation and effectiveness of student programs and services. The result indicated a weak negative correlation between implementation and effectiveness. R is equal to negative 0.054, P is equal to 0.392. Given the p-value of 0.392, which is greater than typical significance level, A is equal to 0.005. The observed relationship was not statistically significant, therefore, failed to reject the null hypothesis. These findings suggest that the relationship between the extent of implementation and effectiveness of student programs and services at Sultan Kudarat State University may be due to random variation rather than a true underlying relationship. As you can see in the Table 4, the Table 4 shows the results of linear regression analysis with a sample size of 250. The model was found to be not statistically significant and projecting the effectiveness dependent variable using implementation as independent variable. The model summary showed a weak correlation between implementation and effectiveness. R is equal to 0.52, P is greater than 0.392. The R squared value was 0.003, indicating that only 0.3% of the variance in effectiveness could be explained by the model. The adjusted R squared value was negative 0.001, suggesting that the model's predictive power was negligible after accounting for sample size and predictors. The ANOVA table revealed a p-value greater than 0.392, failing to reach statistical significance, therefore failed to reject the null hypothesis. The coefficient table showed that the intercept had statistically significant coefficient, p is less than 0.001, indicating a predictive effectiveness value of 3.880 when the implementation value is 0. However, the implementation variable was not statistically significant in predicting effectiveness. P is greater than 0.392 at the 0.05 alpha level. For my conclusion, the studies examined the implementation of effectiveness of student programs and services at Sultan Kudarat State University. The descriptive statistics revealed varying levels of implementation across different services, with admission services showing a high extent of implementation in scholarship and financial assistance, food services, and health services, demonstrating moderate extents of implementation. Perceived effectiveness varied with the admission services, rated as moderately effective, scholarship and financial assistance as the least effective, and food services and health services as moderately and highly effective, respectively. However, the correlation analysis found a weak and non-significant relationship between implementation and effectiveness. The linear regression analysis further indicated that implementation did not significantly predict effectiveness. These findings highlight the need for further research to explore additional factors that influence program effectiveness. The study results provide valuable insights for decision-making and suggest areas for improvement to enhance the quality of student programs and services at Sultan Kudarat State University. For my recommendation, based on the findings of the study, the following recommendations are proposed for future research and improvements in the student programs and services at Sultan Kudarat State University. First, further research. Conduct additional research to investigate the factors that influence programs' effectiveness. Explore variables such as student satisfaction, engagement, and program-specific factors that may contribute to the perceived effectiveness of different services. This will provide a more comprehensive understanding of the drivers of program effectiveness and guide targeted interventions for improvement. Second, enhance scholarship and financial assistance. Given the lower perceived effectiveness of scholarship and financial assistance, it is recommended to review and enhance the availability, accessibility, and communication of financial support programs. Fourth, maintain high standard in health services. Health services were perceived as highly effective, indicating their success in meeting student needs. It is crucial to continue providing timely and comprehensive health services, including regular checkups, access to medical professionals, and mental health support. Fifth, foster collaboration and communication. To enhance overall program implementation and effectiveness, it is recommended to promote collaboration and communication among different departments and stakeholders involved in student programs and services. This can facilitate the sharing of best practices, address challenges, and ensure a coordinated approach in delivering comprehensive supports to students. And last, continuous evaluation and improvement. Regular evaluation of students' programs and services is essential to identify areas of improvement and address emerging needs. Collecting feedback from students, conducting surveys, and engaging in dialogue with stakeholders can provide valuable insights for ongoing enhancement of these programs. That would be the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. Once again, good day.